as Krishna says, it begins with humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, and approaching a bona fide spiritual master. So Prabhupada says, humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. Now, this in itself is not very easy to do simply by intelligence. We may actually intellectually understand that the desire for fame, the desire for recognition, the desire for honor is detrimental to the path of spiritual life. But nonetheless, we may find that impulsively, we're always looking for it. We have a need for it. And Prabhupada goes on to explain, of course, and in many other places, he goes on to explain that this is all external identification with the body. Actually, we have nothing to be proud of if we actually understand that we're eternal spirit souls. I actually reflect, I don't even know if I can tell this story with a limited time. But I remember one time when I was having a very difficult time with humility. And in fact, it was here in this temple. It took place about 43 years ago. And I had this experience that one of my authorities, he had this compulsion to insult me publicly. And that was very difficult for me to accept, to swallow. And I was trying to think, so many different ways I was trying to think, why is he doing this to me? And I was becoming resentful, but I didn't say anything to anybody. I kept it in myself, but in my mind I was always just very, very disturbed about it. And I remember trying to deal with that with great difficulty. And especially, anyways, I have to make it short. But I remember coming back from traveling Sankirtan once, and I was asked to give a class in Srimad Bhagavatam from the 5th canto. And the 5th canto, it just so happens the verse that I was asked to speak on was about Jad Bharata and Maharaj Rahugana. And that verse that I was asked to speak on, Maharaj Rahugana, who was a great king, he was hurling all kinds of insults to Jad Bharata. And Jad Bharata, of course, because Jad Bharata was a very transcendental personality, he had previously been Bharat Maharaj, who had to take birth, who fell down from a very elevated platform as a great saintly king from an advanced platform. He had to take birth in the deer's body in his next life as a deer, but in that deer body, he remembered his previous life because of his elevated state of consciousness, and even in the body of a deer, he would go and he would sit in the outskirts and hear great sages discussing Krishna's pastimes in the body of the deer. And in his next life, he took his birth as Jad Bharata. And as Jad Bharata, he externally appeared to be like a deaf, dumb, dull person, because he was so realized from his advanced consciousness from previous lives that he realized that he didn't want to make the same mistake again, and he didn't want to get entangled with anybody, so he behaved like a deaf and dumb person. So this Jad Bharata was taken as the palanquin carrier for Maharaj Rahugana, and Jad Bharata, while he was carrying the palanquin, he was trying to avoid, because he was a self-realized soul, he was trying to avoid stepping on the ants in the path. And because he was trying to avoid stepping on the ants, all the other 3 palanquin carriers were trying to keep the palanquin steady, and Jad Bharata, who was trying to avoid the ants, was bouncing and causing the king to have a very disrupted ride on his palanquin, and became very disturbed and began hurling insults at Jad Bharata. And he began calling him so many names, called him like an animal, said, "What are you doing?" And Jad Bharata was hearing all those insults, and he responded to him. He said, "Actually, these insults have no effect on me because I'm not this body." And he began to explain. About how he was completely detached from the bodily conception of life, and then gradually, by his his explanation to Maharaj Rahugana, then Maharaj Rahugana was able to understand he happened to be a very elevated soul. Although he played deaf and dumb, he did speak at that one time to Maharaj Rahugana. Someone may say he played deaf and dumb, or didn't do a very good job of it. But he did begin speaking at that particular time. What to do? It's my fault. I'm going to finish this. Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so I happened to get this verse when when Jog Bharati was speaking to Maharaj Rahugana. And it was all called insult. And I was, at that time, as I told you, internally I was really struggling with insult, and I wasn't being very humble. And someone may say, somebody may look at that, well, you should have been disturbed. Why is somebody insulting you publicly? Krishna had a reason for it. I'm convinced. I'm completely convinced. Don't anybody try to tell me I should have been disturbed. I'm convinced now, 40 years later, that Krishna had a reason for doing that to me. I could be not more convinced. He had something for me that I needed to learn. So I was sitting and I was speaking on this verse, and then as I was speaking, I was trying to understand what's in this for me, but I didn't catch it yet. So somehow Krishna arranged, which something never happened, that I was asked to give class again the next day. And the next day was a continuation of the same point. So as I was giving the class on the particular verse, it began to hit me that, yes, there is no reason to be disturbed by insults. And in fact, it was during that time also when I memorized one verse. Sometimes devotees hear this verse from me so much, but it's because I learned this verse during that very difficult time, and where it is stated, Taraskrita Vipala Lakshata Chitta Hatahapi Nasita Pati Gorvanti Tad Bhakta Kavayopihi. The devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even if they are cheated, cursed, neglected, insulted, disturbed, or even killed, devotees are never inclined to avenge themselves. I learned that verse because the verse is speaking about being insulted. Not only being insulted, neglected, disturbed, killed. Someone say, how are you going to seek vengeance if you're killed? But if you read Bhagavatam, there's stories of persons who came back in the future to seek vengeance upon those who killed them. Bhagavatam gives the whole story, not just the externals. That's the beauty of Srimad Bhagavatam, that you get the opportunity to hear about persons after many lives, and not just in one life. It's not like reading a historical account of Abraham Lincoln and how he was an honest man, yes, and whatever else you maybe learn about his character. But when you read Srimad Bhagavatam, you read about great personalities and how they achieved perfection by devotional service. And therefore, because Srimad Bhagavatam glorifies devotional service in every page, Srila Prabhupada says that all the knowledge culminates in devotional service, without which everything else is really not of any real value. So humility, here humility is described, means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. Now I cannot say that I came to that realization at that particular point, but one realization I did have, as during that second class I was giving, I began to get the realization that Krishna put me in that position to speak on that topic for a reason. And by speaking on it, I began to feel like happy that I was being insulted, because I was thinking I could have never gotten the realizations I got while speaking on that topic if this person was not insulting me. It would have been just another theoretical academic presentation, as usual sometimes if we're not careful when we speak on a particular topic. But I was thinking, I was getting so many wonderful realizations as I was speaking about being insulted. I actually felt like Krishna was massaging my heart and pacifying me by giving me the opportunity to understand that actually there is no reason to feel pain or to be affected or what to speak of it's by external insults, because these things are they're not insults of the soul. They're just simply connected to the body. They're external. So as I said, also my experience is that I felt very pleased, and when the person who actually had been doing that to me insulting me in that way, I never said anything to him. I never said I was disturbed, because I was actually internally, I was feeling very happy. And not only that, but shortly thereafter, he wasn't insulting me anymore. I could just stop insulting me. And it just so happens I saw this person 20 years later, and I had been sharing that story with devotees around that time about my own experience with being insulted and how Krishna was very kind. He taught me how I was grateful to get the realization, my God, how he put me on the asana to speak about being insulted and gave me those exact verses about insult. I didn't look for those verses. Somehow there was some divine hand from me in those verses. But yet this devotee had heard that I was speaking on this topic, and he came up to me and said, by the way, I heard that you're speaking about somebody who was insulting you. He said, was that me? And I said, no, don't worry about it. I'm very grateful. You won't believe the realizations I got from it. And I said, please, don't worry about it. Don't worry. Then he looked at me and said, I'm a fallen grihastha and you're a sannyasi. I think I better apologize to you now. And I said, no, don't apologize. And he went down and I just simply reached down and touched his feet, held him in embrace, and said, thank you. And Krishna has his ways. Krishna has his ways of teaching us that, so humility, as Prabhupada says right here, means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. This material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others. But from the point of view of a man in perfect knowledge, who knows that he is not this body, anything honor or dishonor pertaining to this body is useless. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter, for one who's conquered the mind, super soul is reached and he attains tranquility. For such a man, heat and cold, happiness, distress, honor and dishonor, they're all the same. This is how to transcend the dualities of this world. We transcend the dualities of this world by making a connection with Krishna and seeing everything connected to Krishna. This is Krishna consciousness. And therefore Prabhupada says all these qualities culminate in devotional service to the Lord. Every one of them will culminate in devotional service to the Lord. We simply have to make the effort to understand what is the goal of all this knowledge. Vedaishcha sayavaraham eva veda. Vedanta, what is it? Vedanta? Hare Krishna, my memory is by all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the Kapala of the Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas, Krishna says. So the goal of all the knowledge is to know who is Krishna. This is perfection. This knowledge, to know Krishna, is, as we said, is that knowledge which is revealed to the person, within the heart of that person, who makes the effort to surrender and to engage in devotional service, beginning with the processes of devotional service of hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Achanam, Mandaram, Dasam, Sakyam, Atmanam, Vedanam. There are 9 processes of devotional service which begin with hearing about Krishna and chanting and glorifying Krishna. And then Srila Prabhupada explains when there is Shravanam, Kirtanam, then the result of that is Smaranam, Vishnu Smaranam. One will be able to remember Krishna. And remembrance of Krishna, of course, is the safest place to be in this material world. If we simply Bhajahure Manashinandanandana Abhaya Charanara, as Govinda Das says, my dear mind, please meditate upon the lotus feet of the divine son Nanda, because by meditation upon him, one becomes fearless in this world. So by hearing these transcendental narrations and hearing about Krishna gradually and through realized souls, through the revealed scriptures, and gradually we can hope to be able to bypass these other methods of inferior knowledge and come to the most complete understanding of knowledge, which is revealed only through the process of devotional service to Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada will go on to explain more. We only touched on humility, pridelessness a little bit, but there's many more. There's non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be, is ignorance. Hare Krishna. We will stop there and we'll have kirtan for the remainder of the arti. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Your Holiness, Swami.
Yeah.
Please stand up.